Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Feminine Mashriq. Today I'm joined by two super talented Austin photographers, Jinni and Nadia.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. And y'all are joining us from your homes because it's still the pandemic. Had y'all seen this film before?
I hadn't, no.
You hadn't?
I had seen it a long time ago, but very briefly, just like a little bit. And I was like, oh man, I really need to watch that.
Yeah.
And now I have finally watched it all the way through.
So I've seen this film hundreds of times, so many times. I love it. It's a great movie. It was painful to watch this time because it was so hard to think that like this Beirut doesn't exist right now. Yeah. It's such a great film. Nadine Labaki for those of you listening who might not be familiar, she is like a titan in Middle Eastern cinema. She was the first Lebanese woman to be nominated for an Oscar because her third film, Capernaum, was nominated as Best Foreign Language Film in 2019, I believe. But all three of her feature-length films have been like critical hits, have been massively successful and available in like over 50 countries. And so it's really exciting. She's a really exciting filmmaker, and it was so fun to watch this first film again after having spent a lot of time with her other two films and see kind of where she began and what the themes that she's always working with and how they were really first being fleshed out.
The third film, so it's Caramel, Capernaum, and then the third one that you're talking about.
Where Do We Go Now? And
Okay.
it takes place in a village in the valley, and it's about kind of, in this village there are Muslims and Christians who for a long time are getting along, and then something happens and they're realizing that and all the men start fighting, and so it's up to the women to kind of be like, we're going to shake things up so that these men will stop fighting and stop tearing our village apart. And all of her work is very heavily examining femininity in Lebanon. Yeah. So yeah. What did y'all have any thoughts this time around about like seeing Beirut?
I wrote down something a little about the intro scene. My first instinct was like, man, these women are so cool. Like I lived in Lebanon as a really small child, so those archetypes of women, maybe like just how they dressed, how they wore their makeup and their hair was just felt rebellious in a way, and I really enjoyed seeing that. I think that was a really cool like first dive into the film, not really knowing what to expect. So yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the characters remind me of a lot of my cousins. When I went to Lebanon, and yes, the first and last time I've been there, unfortunately, but I was in third grade. And it is luckily still very vivid in my mind, but I was in third grade, and my cousins were like in college and were so sweet and would like take me with them to university, and they were wearing like crazy, they were all like kind of their own Spice Girl, they were like dressed really wild, and my family doesn't really wear the hijab and stuff, and so it was kind of familiar. Kind of what you were just saying, like how they dress, how they interact with one another, and there's this like fun camaraderie between all of them and this sisterhood that you can feel, and then also like, yes, like that's the energy that I feel from them, and it reminds me of my family and my cousins and how they interacted with me, even though I was like in third grade. And they were just super sweet. And it struck me too, like the opening like scene too, right after we see the women in the salon, the hanging bee on the salon, and just how that's kind of just you know, I think it's like there, and it's not, maybe it's not like supposed to really be like this overarching thing or this thing that's looming over them. It's just a part of their life. Like there's just destruction, and it's kind of, you know, they adapt to it and, you know, live their lives in spite of it, and it's, for them, it's, you know, unfortunately it's life, you know. But I thought that was really, it's like a silent, you know, message there, I guess, with that. For me, it was, I was like, oh, yep. Mm-hmm.
No, I think that's such a nice touch to have this like very, you know, cutesy font, and it's like written in French, so it's like hoity-toity, but then the B is just falling off. And it's the same with like, I adore that they included the electricity cutting off so much.
Yes.
Because that's just such a part of life in Lebanon, is like, oh, well, we just don't have electricity now. Like, last time I was there, it cut off while I was in an elevator, and I was like, cool, this is my worst nightmare.
The exact place you don't want to be.
Yeah, I was like, sick, cool. But yeah, it's all these tiny little details of just, and I think Nisreen's character is really interesting. She's the woman who's getting married, and she is marrying into I think a family that she believes to be more conservative. So even just on the drive to their house, she's like putting her hair up, she's buttoning her shirt up. And she's a really good, because the movie is dealing a lot with tradition / modernity, as a lot of Middle Eastern films currently do, just because tradition is so baked into the culture in some ways that are really wonderful and beautiful, and in some ways that are kind of like, this feels a little outdated. But her kind of struggle with, she's about to get married and her fiance doesn't know that she's not a virgin anymore.
Yeah.
And I think it's just handled so well, because you just care about this character, and the film isn't saying like, look at the shame that she's going through because she's not a virgin. It's like, no, yeah, like, she's a modern woman, but she fell in love with a man who maybe has some more conservative viewpoints, and it's interacting with that. And I think it's those little things that are so special in this film.
Yeah, they touch on like a lot of social issues without really going too detailed into, or too far into it. And it's just like, yeah, like, you know, she doesn't really go into the hypocrisy of like the culture there, where men kind of have sex with women before marriage, but they don't want to marry that woman,
right?
You know,
she's not marriage material.
But it's really nice how, like, yeah, she doesn't really go too far into it, but she's just like, yeah, this is a real issue, and this is an issue that women are navigating, so much so that there are these doctors that accommodate these procedures to be done, and you have no idea the you know, the bending over backwards that women do there, you know,
of just like the hymen surgery, super controversial in the realm of, you know, Lebanon and the politics of what you two are talking about through like the male gaze. So I just thought about that just being subject matter was super interesting, even in a film like in 2007 was pretty interesting content.
We also don't get to know very many men in this film at all. We get to know the you know, officer who has kind of a cute little arc with Lael, and we get to know Nisreen's fiance. But other than that, like, we don't spend time with any men. And it's such a gem. It's such a treat to, like, I don't know what the opposite of the Bechdel test is, but this film definitely doesn't pass that in the most refreshing way. Really fun.
Yeah, it's a woman's world.
Right? And that's what, and Nadine Labaki talks about, she said it in a hair salon because that gets to be a woman's world. And that feels so cross-cultural too. Like it's these women who get to go in and have these very like intimate relationships with the people that are doing their hair and waxing them. And I think Labaki talks about how it's like almost a therapy session. Sometimes you're going in and this person you maybe don't know very well is cutting your hair, and all of a sudden you're telling them everything about yourself. And it's really, really quite special.
Totally. I like, my sister is a, you know, is a hairstylist, a hairdresser, and you know, she tells me that everyone in her realm is like, she's their confidant, and it's this sort of unspoken safe space when you walk in there, and kind of, you know, you're at your most vulnerable. Women are there with their untouched hair, with their untouched makeup, and just kind of coming together. And something I also wrote down that I really just loved about the film was that I felt like there was a lot of nonverbal communication happening, and a lot of really meaningful eye contact between these women that just spoke so much. You know, going back to your previous podcast, how you were talking about Wajib and how it did such a great job with dialogue and the use of dialogue. Like, that's so important in films, I think, for me personally, but it's really important that just to get that ephemeral feel. It's so feminine in this film, so I really did enjoy that.
Yeah, I think that's so hard too, right? To like translate these real life things that happen between people that you know, that aren't scripted, you know, that aren't, you know, like, oh, this person says this and this person says this. It's like, oh, how do you capture that feeling between, you know, like Rima and that client that comes in, and they kind of share these flirtatious glances and these, you know, soft smiles at each other, and you're like, oh, what's happening, you know, and it's really powerful that she, you know, really creates the space for that to happen, and that it feels, I mean, for me, that whole movie just felt so fucking real, you know, like, it's like, oh, I know these people, like, and you can tell she loves, you know, she loves these people, and like, they're based on true people, and that she loves them, and she wants other people to love them too, you know. It's
Absolutely.
really nice.
I did want to talk about the scene with Rima when the woman first comes in to get her hair washed, or just because she comes down and she has this very like solemn look on her face, and she sort of, Rima asks her, you know, is there something wrong? And she says, no, I had nothing to do when I was in the neighborhood, so I stopped by. I wanted to ask you how you two interpreted that scene, if you thought maybe there was something wrong with that girl, or if she was genuinely just wanting to experience something new, or her character, so interesting to me, even though she was like an untitled character, but yet the film ends on her. It ends with her kind of relinquished, you know, as a new person,
right?
New confidence, new self, because like that's what a haircut can afford you sometimes, this like new identity, new persona, and that confidence.
And I think, oh yeah, go ahead, Emily, sorry.
Because I think for me, she says something like, because Rima's like, I can give you a haircut, and she's like, no, everybody at home would throw a fit. And so to me, she was representing the pressure of being the perfect woman at home. And because I mean, she walks in and she is like hyper feminine. She's got this gorgeous long hair. She's, you know, wearing makeup. Like, she's this hyper feminine woman who has a kind of a queer moment. And I mean, not kind of, she has a queer moment, and I think feels some freedom in that, because to me, it was her breaking through and being like, I don't have to be what everyone thinks I have to be. I can be exactly what I want to be, and I'm gonna cut my hair, which feels huge. Like, I feel like,
and it ending with her,
ending with her and that haircut. And I will say that wig is criminal. That wig is rough.
She loved it. She was so feeling herself, though. She looked.
She was feeling herself. She sold it, though. Yeah,
she's cute as hell. But I was like, "What's happening here?" But yeah, no, it's the power of a haircut. It's breakup hair. It's when I realized that I was really unhappy at school, I chopped, you know, half a foot off my hair. Like, it's a powerful moment to decide.
And doing something for you, you know, like just doing the act of, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this for me. I can do this, you know, like I have the ability to do this, and I'm going to claim this space for myself, because, and not just live this life that, you know, her parents or, you know, society wants her to live. And I thought that was, yeah, just really an amazing ending scene to end with her, even though she was kind of like this character we don't really know so much about, and we're talking probably more about her for like equally as long as the time she's like probably in the movie. And yeah, I love that though.
I love the idea of just like ultimately the trust, you know, that these women put into the hands of these stylists, and just the vulnerability that's shared, especially like, I mean, I'm sure that you have experienced what it's like to have your hair wrenched and your scalp massaged in that bowl, and like you close your eyes and everything sort of like fades away. You feel safe and comfortable, and it's so intimate. It's crazy how intimate
right
hair done is. And it doesn't even have to be sexual, and I think that's why this film was so cool, because the rating was PG-13. You know, so it was like the tones were there, they were very mature, but it didn't need to be like outwardly said like that. I really appreciated that it was in these small nuances of such as like scrubbing her hair, that tense moment. What is Nadine's? She starts with an L, Layan, or
Layla.
Lael.
Layan.
Yeah.
When she's waxing, you know, the wife of oh my gosh, you know, what an
my
intense scene, and just going back
That
to
was an intense moment.
it wasn't there, you know, but
Yeah.
Were y'all hoping for like a I guess it's a separate scene. It's a separate scene with her and the wife of who she's cheating on with. But when she comes back, I guess with her daughter maybe, and yeah, and they're in the front, and then she's talking about her husband and how it's his his birthday? Was it his birthday? Yeah. And then I was kind of hoping that, I don't know, I'm wondering if y'all were hoping that there would be like this kind of redeeming moment for Leo, or like when she was like, oh, I forgot the balloons, you know, and we had just seen, you know, earlier in the movie, Leo like, you know, yeah, and she had those balloons, and I was like, oh man, I wonder if this is gonna be like this real sisterhood moment, and she's gonna like, yeah, like offer her some balloons or something. But I don't know. I guess I'm wondering if y'all were thinking something like that, or but at the same time I was like, no, that wouldn't be real necessarily, you know, like she's like processing what she's, you know, she feels so guilty and she can hardly even look at her, you know, and that she can't really have this moment that I'm like, oh yes, redemption, you know, like,
Right. No, and because it's you desperately want that, because that's the film is about sisterhood and is about female friendships. And but that's like, that's what the patriarchy does, is it's like, I'm going to keep you down because I'm going to separate you. And I'm going to make sure that both of you are hurt, but you're going to blame it on each other and not on the man that is cheating on his family with this other woman who lives with her parents still. Like the power dynamic is off. And I think, like, yeah, it would have been so beautiful for that moment to happen, but it just couldn't, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, and it really couldn't. Yeah, the more I thought about it, I was like, no, it couldn't. That's not real. Like, that's not real. That's not, and it would have felt, yeah, it wouldn't have felt right, I guess. But I was just like, dang.
Yeah, right.
her just sort of rationalizing, like, who is this woman? Who is this wife?
Yes.
You just cannot escape. You know, like, you know, what does she like? Her rationalizing that, I thought, just kind of showed, you know, her obsessive kind of, you know, issues, not only with him, but kind of just everything. You see how like her body language moves around the salon, and she's a very like nervous kind of person. I think, you know, and I think that's probably around the middle of the film, it kind of just shows like her kind of becoming more of a static character, because at that moment it feels like she's very one-dimensional, because she's you know, she's not even paying attention to this man that's you know, adoring her from afar. She's, you know, distancing herself from the woman in her salon to do some scandalous shit, man. And like, it's just, you know, it kind of her like she needed to get stood up. She needed to scrub that bathroom top to bottom and to really kind of know her worth after that.
Yeah.
As women, we've all done some pretty
We've all been there, kind
of. Rubs or really, you know, so I think that was a super relatable scene. You're waiting for that call, you don't get that call, and then your friends show up and they're like,
yeah,
take shitty anyway, you know.
And you're like, why did I do this to myself? Like, he didn't pick up, but I still had hope. I still went there and I scrubbed everything.
And which is
made a terrible cake and put balloons everywhere.
You know, just the whole, I mean, I'm sure your family, my tata, everything was spick and span. You know, we always had the freshest, hottest food. Everything had to be perfect. And it's just, it definitely feels like that's imperative to Lebanese culture a bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that level of like humiliation of sitting in that hotel room. I'm like, I haven't specifically done that thing, but I have been there, and it's just like, oh, it hurts, but it's pretty nice to see like that Nadine Labaki is so gorgeous. Her character's a successful salon owner, and she's also getting stood up, so it's kind of like, here it is, this is just life. But yeah, her cleaning that hotel that is my grandmother, absolutely. Just like not letting my sister's partner always says that my grandmother doesn't make dirt, which is really funny, and that's just like how I feel about like proper Lebanese women, is they don't make dirt, which isn't by any means fair, but it's like this, it's so cultural, it's so baked into the culture.
And something too, I guess, to mention, you know, maybe people are like, oh man, this is weird. Like, why are all these people still living with their parents? Like, they're obviously, maybe they shouldn't be living there by this time. But yeah, like culturally speaking, that is what's done until you're married. I mean, that's how it was done in my family. I didn't know. I mean, I don't know if y'all know anything else, anything different from that, but.
That's very similar to like, you know, my family, they have been living in the same building since the 50s, and the whole family lived in this building. And I think the scene where she's, you know, whispering on the phone and she says, you know, I don't want to wake up my, you know, brother, and it's this small condensed room. It shows you that like her success and her independence aren't totally mutually exclusive, and that it's so like exactly what you said. It's such a reality for not just places in Lebanon, I mean, places in France, all over, just not the US. Here, we want to kick them out early. They're very much preserving and helping.
Family value,
100%, yeah.
Which is why the Lily and Rose storyline is like, oh God, it's so good. It's so heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking and heartwarming and
but it's like, no, you pick your mom every time. Like,
but is that her mom? I was
confused. Something
sister?
I think it might be sister.
Yeah, their whole thing, their whole relationship is really.
I was confused at the ending. Like, I didn't know, like, if she. So I guess you assume that she chooses her sister.
Yeah.
It's kind of, but it feels. Yeah, in my mind, I'm like, oh, maybe that doesn't mean she like gives up on love, but it does feel like she feels like my moment for love has passed, like, you know, and that for me was kind of one of the just hard, like, I don't know, I took that really hard. I was just like, no, like, Rose, like, yes, get your hair done, go out, you know, although I was like, Rose, you don't need to do that, you're like elegant.
Like, you look amazing anyway.
Already asked you out, girl. But it's just, and I guess that's the thing about, you know, one of the themes they're exploring is, you know, with her and what's the other character's name, is it Jamal? The actress woman.
The actress.
Yeah, like kind of navigating becoming an older woman. I mean, becoming an older woman across cultures, like, it seems like, you know, that needs to be talked about more, and women need to feel more seen and visible, and that there's this idea of like, oh, your desirability ends at X age, you know? And it's
Right.
just like, man, Rose, no, go for it. Like, go meet him, you know? But it's, yeah, that one was tough. But I really love her and Lily. And I love how they're both named after flowers too.
Right.
And
That's very cute. Yeah, it's interesting because it's Lily is in the front end of the film supposed to be our comic relief, collecting all of the tickets and thinking that they're love letters. It's like it's funny, and it's also like quite sweet and heartbreaking. And then at the back end, it's just like, because you hate to say it, but like you're frustrated that she ruins this date, and I just wanted to be like, just, you could have a night alone, Lily. Like, let Rose go do this. But it's the culture is about duty, and it's about honoring your family.
Yeah, taking care of each other. Like, you know, you see it in all these moments too, you know, where the women, they come to the hotel room where Lael is, and they all take care, or like they all go with what was the girl's name that needed the surgery?
Nadine.
Yeah, they all go with her to go do this thing, and it's like, okay, and so naturally, you know, her sister is gonna do the same, you know, like really there's really no other option for her in her mind. Which
I love the scene of when with Nisreen and her mom, you know, is really
on the bed,
you know, just kind of like her, just, you know, telling her on, like, easing her in. I mean, it's that dramatic irony, because we know that she has already lost her virginity, but her mom is being so, you know, sweet and supportive in this, you know, growing moment that she's shifting from, you know, this side of womanhood to the next. And but also that moment of like, you're always welcome in this household, was just so important to hear, because it is very like embedded in that culture. It's sort of like, once you take a, you know, your husband's last name, it's
that's it.
Yeah, you've crossed over into the next. And so I really resonated with that scene, because you know, I was raised Muslim, so and I just love that this film really highlights, you know, and we were raised Muslim in Ashafia, which is a Christian district, which is even more interesting, but just to highlight the consolidation of those two, of just all the secular religions, identities in general, was super cool.
And how they're all intermixing. Like there's Christian, there's Muslim, and
right. And it was, I mean, I'm really not used to watching a lot of films, and like, again, relating back to your previous podcast, about, you know, about the one with Wajib, she was saying, it was, she saw herself in that film, and she's been seeing some of these, you know, herself in these Arabic films, and like, it's been really enlightening for her, such as like, you know, Nisreen's fiance's name is Bassam, like that's my brother's name. Nisreen is my cousin's name. Just to hear these names, to hear the woman at the beginning, literally I wrote down, you know, about her talking about potentially having to bury a family member that day, which was hilarious. But she says something, she gets the cigarettes for a good price, for a good deal. And like, dude, we've all heard our family, my dad, if the price was right, he was happy. And it's just very much in that culture again. So just to hear these small things brought me to a place of comfort for sure.
Yeah, it's so, it's I don't know, talking with Shireen last week, there were just parts of the Arab experience that I didn't quite realize was specifically Arab. I thought like maybe that's just kind of what life for me was like. And then you watch these films and you have these conversations and you're like, oh, whoa, that's just like part of our culture and our identity. Like, I thought that was specific to my family, or I thought that was specific to last time I was in Harissa. And it's like, no, it's this amazing cross-cultural, cross-identity thing that's so special. And that's why it's, I mean, people are always saying like representation is important in films, but it really, really is. It's so important to see people that live like you live, or speak like your family speaks, or looks like your family. Like it just erases this isolation. And that's one reason that putting this film series on was so important to me, is because I just wanted, you know, other Arab women to be like, oh, I hadn't seen this film before, and now I've seen it, and now it feels really special. And this film specifically is a huge point of pride for Lebanese people, because this came out in 2007, so it was after, you know, the war, but it was still a politically really difficult time. And people were so proud to finally have a film that wasn't about war, but was about Lebanon. And so Lebanon has a really bad censorship problem when it comes to media, and this was able to get by fine. They didn't cut anything out, and Nadine Labaki on purpose was like, I made sure that everything felt soft and non-confrontational. She was like, I'm not going to take anything out of the film, and we're going to talk about virginity, and we're going to talk about aging, and we're going to have a scene where a woman fakes having a period, but it'll be soft enough to where it's going to be accessible. And that's where she rides that line so perfectly, and it's so good.
It is so good. She never throws anything in your face.
I just wanted to know what your thoughts were about that scene, you two, because that scene struck me as like, I was like, wait, what's happening? You know, she's in the bathroom and she's just, what are y'all's, you know, perspective on that?
It's so, I mean, oftentimes our currency is our beauty as women, and she's an actress, so it's like times 10. She has to be young and beautiful or she feels this way to be taken seriously. So she's like, I'm assuming she's already gone through menopause, so she doesn't have a period anymore. And there's this like gross way of thinking about womanhood as periods, when it's like, no, any gender can get a period. My mom doesn't have a period and she's still a woman. Like, I have plenty of friends who are women that don't have periods, but there's still this pressure to do this performative femininity.
Yeah.
And I think that's just where she was at in that bathroom. And it's just so sad.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard. And and then whenever we literally saw her dabbing the nail polish, then you're like, oh, she did that. Like, she purposely went to that audition and did that so that the casting directors would be like, oh, she is young. We could cast her. She's young. She still has a period. And it's all, it's like both a message, you know, to women and to society, to be like, you know, these things that you put on women, it's ridiculous, you know. We are desirable at any age, you know.
Absolutely.
It is really like, you know, it's like, oh damn, how am I gonna feel when I reach that age, you know? And like, she's struggling with it. Yes, like, she's an actress, but like, she's also just a woman in a culture that doesn't see women as desirable anymore.
Right.
And like, it's almost like, I'm like, is she doing that also for her? Like, is she kind of tricking herself, you know? And like, she hasn't come to terms with her own age, you know, and this is like her way of, you know, coping, you know, maybe, I don't know, but it's both like, there's like humor to it in a way, because you're like, oh my god, like, she is doing that, you know, like,
right.
But then you're like, oh man, like, that hurts, that really hurts, you know.
Like a bit psychological, so that's why I mean, when you said that you felt like she was maybe doing it for herself, that's kind of how I was taking it. But I really, like, Emily, what you said, I really appreciate that perspective, and I think that like helped me see it in a different light, because I watched that scene and it kind of threw me for one a bit, you know.
But that whole audition, that I don't have the actress's name in front of me, but she is phenomenal. Really to be able to, like, acting badly is really difficult, and she has to go and do this audition poorly and then cry in the middle of it. She is incredible.
I don't know if I read that maybe was she the only one that maybe had actual experience in acting, like, or I might be wrong. I think I read maybe one.
Oh wow.
It might have actually just been Nadine that had like proper training.
Right, because Nadine,
I didn't know that.
Nadine is she's in a lot of movies.
Everyone did feel super real. I was like, how did she find these people? Like,
right. Well, and that's the thing is, if when y'all are feeling, have y'all seen Capernaum?
No.
Okay, when you're feeling very emotionally stable, when you're surrounded by loved ones, when you've eaten a good meal, and when you're going to be able to have a good night's sleep, watch Capernaum. No one in that film is actors, and the main character is an actual Syrian refugee, and I believe he's 11 or 12 in it, and it's phenomenal. And she says that she didn't ask anyone to act; she asked them to be. But it's hard. It's an incredible film, but it is a hard watch. So I wanted to talk about the metaphor of the film being called and being about caramel. So I think they've started opening like sugaring places in the States, I think. But this is that's the common way to remove body hair in the Middle East, is you warm up some sugar and some lemon and you use it as a wax. And so it's this very sweet candy that's also it's hot, it's burning you, and it's bringing you a lot of pain. And I think that's I think it's a great metaphor. She's so good. Nadine's so smart. But
not to mention, I felt like the colors in the film had a very caramel tone.
That's
right.
Very warm hues. You know, that scene when she's looking out the window is beautiful. Beautiful shot.
Love that scene. But yeah, it's right before she's waxing her lover's wife. She's starts eating the caramel, and it's visceral, and it's so good.
What was your take on that? Sort of maybe hard to chew, or I don't know. I found that interesting. She knew she was going into a difficult situation or something, but
yeah, it's hard to, I felt it very deeply, but it's hard to put into words what that feeling was. It's almost a power play. It's almost a acceptance of I'm gonna bring pain to this woman as well as this sugar.
She hurts me, I'm gonna hurt her.
Yeah.
Her very existence hurts me.
Right.
And now she's here, existing here with me, and she has no idea who I am, and
that anonymity.
You could tell she was like, oh, did that hurt? You know?
Mm-hmm.
All the dramatic irony in the film was really fun, to be part of, obviously, as the audience, and to be in on what they didn't know specifically. Worked really well in a lot of the scenes.
I love the drama. I feel like that's something I always just thought oh my God, I was just oh man, we're just super dramatic. My dad gets sick. He's like, I got sick because you don't give me enough kisses. You don't love me. It's like that, and he got that from my grandmother. She's like, I'm sick because you don't love me enough.
Yep.
I
won't be here much longer. Just so you know, I won't be here much longer. That's mine. Just chill, cool it. It's fine.
I love you, God.
Yeah.
And I really love that about Lily's character being so love obsessed, and these love letters, and he wrote me so many, and my grandmother was always telling love stories and talking about my grandpa and her and my tita and Judu, and I just love it so much. I was like, oh, I love how dramatic Lily is, because that was very much, a little less senile in my home, but still very dramatic and still love obsessed.
Absolutely. Let's see. So I guess we haven't talked too much about Rima. We've talked about Rima's client. We talked about her for much longer than I thought we would, which was fun. But Rima's a neat character. Rima, first of all, I think she's very 2020 cute. I feel like I could see her in Austin and be like, yeah, there's a hip chick. She's cute. The subtlety in her whole performance because we first see her getting like hard checked out by this delivery guy. And she's super confident and she's like, leave me alone, whatever. And then it all just fades when this woman comes into the salon. And I think that that's really lovely. Lebanon is like a place where it is not the worst place to be queer. Lebanon isn't. There is a culture there that's not super secretive or super hidden. There are gay bars, but it's still the Middle East. It's still a world that is
still kind of it's like illegal, but there are spaces.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's also technically illegal for women to wear shorts. Like, but that's one of those things that they've just kind of like, well, we're not going to arrest anybody for that. We don't have time. But I love the addition of that storyline. And seeing it not be tragic either. Like, it wasn't like she is getting made fun of for it or she doesn't get jumped because of it. It just gets to be this cute little small romance. And I think that that's really special, especially in 2007. Like, even in some American cinema, that kind of respectful treatment wasn't there.
What's happening? Yeah.
I don't know if you guys...
And I like how it's supposed to... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Nadia. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I don't know if y'all seen the show L Word or watching that on Showtime, and I guess that came out like maybe 2004-ish.
What's it called? I'm sorry.
The L Word.
Sorry. The Outward.
The L Word.
Oh, the L Word. Yes. Yes. Okay. Yes, girl.
Sort of reminded me
like the L Word.
The Shane of the L Word.
Yes.
Kind of,
yeah.
Hair, like the hairstyle is like very cool.
Right.
Woman. Really like loved her. Just her vibes. It felt like, you know.
Are you saying Rima reminds you of Shane?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, she's Arab Shane.
Because they hold this very like androgynous kind of just a
silent type.
Yeah.
But again, like her performance is like she didn't need a lot of dialogue for her to remain one of like the most crucial, I think, characters in the film. And wow, like that's that part when she sings.
Oh my God, the wedding.
Yes, you're not expecting that to come from her. Really.
No.
That really just took me for like. Yeah, I was so shocked,
and that reminds you, like, it totally had that same effect on me, and I was like, man, it reminds you just how nuanced people are, and that you think that you have this idea of who this character is, and like, but it's also a part of her character, even though maybe she's soft-spoken, but it's like also because she's soft-spoken and she takes things maybe to heart that she's created this moment to to give that to them, and to create this special moment for them on their birthday or on their wedding day. And then you're just like, oh man, like maybe she's not as shy as I thought she was. And like, she just, people are nuanced. People are complicated.
I thought beautiful and, just really showed Lebanon for what Lebanon was. Just a blend of, the theme of marriage, of the music, the food, the dancing, the family coming together, and everybody, even the cop was there and he was having a good time. So it was interesting how they kind of brought together like this universe of the film here at the wedding as like one of the final scenes, but it to be like, so highlighted in Lebanon, I felt.
And
go ahead. Sorry.
It's a lot of Nadine Labaki's first two films are really interacting with. So Lebanon is in itself, the way the government is structured is segregated religiously. Like, so my family is Christian. So like I would vote for different government officials than y'all would just because of my religion. And if like I wanted to marry a Muslim man, one of us would have to publicly denounce our religion and convert in order to do it. And so Nadine's films are all about like, this is so stupid. Like, and she has always cast another Muslim woman to be opposite of her. So it's never just a Christian story. It's always showing
intermixing.
Yeah.
They're intermixing in that it's like, peace can exist, peace
right.
exists
like, we're not trying to be separate. It's the government wants us to stay separate, and that's so stupid. And I think this film is another great example of that, because Lael's character is supposed to be a Christian, and it doesn't matter. She still goes to her best friend's wedding, and she still is celebrating with them and doing life with them. So even just making these films is like a small act of resistance, which is so beautiful.
I really love this scene because exactly like growing up, Muslim, there are like these inherent conservative, views that are instilled upon that specific religion. So that scene with Nisreen and her mom, like right before, the underwear and the bra, it was really playful and fun, and like was not expecting that, because she's fully, that's like what my household looked like. My kiddo was, wrapped in a hijab, and it was considered haram if we showed any skin. So like, the fun, cute lingerie, for that to be like a highlight in the film, I think was a little bit louder for maybe people with Islamic background than
to have the juxtaposition of it.
Sure, because just like an American viewing that was just like, it would have just went kind of maybe right over.
It's like, oh yeah, of course, but in that culture,
it intended to stick out like that, but it did for me. So I thought that was a cute scene.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you're becoming a woman now. Here are these sheer lingerie items.
I sort of talked about this with Shireen, is there's this very specific way that the West wants to view particularly Muslim women, particularly hijabi women. And it's that you are oppressed, and then you fall in love with some blue-eyed American man, and then you realize that you can take off your hijab and you can be free. And it's like, no, stop. That's so stupid. Here's a Muslim family who's like excited about sex because that's also part of it, and is excited about wearing cute lingerie because that's part of it. Like,
they have sex too. They enjoy life too. Yeah. They have love lives just like you. And I think that's like a huge, driving force, or for me that is very apparent. It's like, I think Nadine, I've listened to her talk about this, is like, you get used to your people just being talked about as like a war and a product of war, and it's like, no, like, we are humans too. We have really complicated lives as well, and like casual lives, and we have romantic lives, and we have these relationships with people. Like, we're not just, a war-torn country, or we're not just a conflict, and we're not just news, and we are people living just as vividly as you are. And I think that comes across just so beautifully in this movie. And like, oh God, I'm just like, man, it makes me teary to like see it.
No, absolutely. I came back from a trip and had a kid. Not a kid. I was, I think, 20.
You had a kid.
Yeah. Right. But this person was like, oh, what's it like to be back in civilization? And I was like, Lebanon's a metropolitan. Like, I went to H&M. Like, I swim at the pool in a bikini. Like, what are you talking about? And I in the backwoods of Georgia, and I don't blame this person, because it really is just you haven't been given the proper perspective.
Yeah.
But it's still just like, is that what y'all think of us still?
In fact, Arabic architecture actually extremely influenced Spanish architecture. I mean, if you go to Spain, and you're, enamored by those buildings. I mean, you have, a lot of the old Arab countries to thank for that. And going back to a lot what you were saying, Jenny, is like, it's just learning to just see us as people. Like, I mean, even in Asian cultures that are, definitely not as represented as they need to be in media, such as people from Thailand, Vietnamese, we eat their food, but we don't take the time to really invest and to hear their voices. And I feel the same way about Lebanon in general. People will talk all day like the food's amazing, but really don't know much about the culture, about really even what Lebanon looks like. Yes, sure, we have issues.
Where is it?
Kitchen, there's sewer problems, there's electricity issues, but Lebanon is actually one of the most beautifully scenic places in the, I mean, sure, I might be biased, but I can say it might be in the entire world, because as a child, it's a freaking dream to imagine that we were swimming in the Mediterranean Sea, and then we would, in the same day, drive 2 hours and be in the snow in the Cedars Mountains. You know, it's just it's imaginable. It's insane to imagine the oppression that, yes, that city, I mean, that country has gone through as a whole because of their corrupt government. There's a lot of issues, but the resilience and the quirkiness of the people will always shine through. It's very imperative that, you know, we as filmmakers, photographers, like, we continue to push that voice out. Yeah, to show the light of it, you know.
It's like, yeah, these people, they eat sweets, they're just as sweet as those sweets, you know. And I want people to know that. It's like they spritz rose water, they, you know, they have, you know, they're very much like, all my Lebanese family, they're very much people to savor the moment, you know. And like, and yeah, I just want people to really know that. And I think, you know, movies like this really do show you how these people are really, they are there for each other, and they're sweet people, and they're, you know, yeah, I don't know, I could go on and on, but I'll cry.
Oh, I get that though. That's great.
But yeah, you're right, Nadia. Like, that place is a dream, and it's so geographically diverse. It's a gem, and then you're just like, how is there such beauty, and then also just such destruction in this one place? And then these people relentlessly, like, they stick it out, like they do. A lot of them do, and a lot of them, but a lot of them don't. And you know, it's sad that it's like, you know, there's more what is it, expats from, you know, Lebanon in different places. And like, you know, in Brazil, like, I have lots of family in Brazil, and it's like Brazil has like the highest population of Lebanese outside of Lebanon, and like, you know, little things like that. And yeah, but
I'm curious to ask you both, if you both speak Arabic, and or just have any relations to your culture growing up in America. And if you don't, do you have like any aversion to obvious like imperialism? Because I feel like that is a big reason as to why I'm not fluent in Arabic myself.
Yeah, no, my Arabic is pretty terrible.
Very hard language.
Yeah, if I have to get by, I can, only with Lebanese Arabic though. Like, I can't speak Fusha. I don't know Moroccan or any other regional dialect, and it's entirely because of assimilation and safety. And family being like, you're American now. We love being Lebanese. We're gonna eat the food. We're gonna be the people, but like, we speak English for safety.
Yeah.
Definitely struggled with, I feel like, because my dad's first language, my dad was actually fluent in 5 different languages, which is pretty crazy, but his first language was Arabic, his second language is English. But I feel like because he didn't really speak a lot of Arabic, like, the English it was not perfect. So therefore I feel like I was put at a disadvantage going through school, because, or I feel it now, even as an adult, the way that people speak, they're very articulate, and it intimidates me a bit, because maybe I wasn't exposed to these types of 2-cent words, if you will, or, you know, larger, just technical jargon. So it's been sort of weird navigating that.
Yeah, no, yeah, I resonate with both of what y'all are saying. And yeah, same for me. Like, whenever, I think I was like fluent until I was 5, and then my dad decided no more, like, my brother and he just stopped teaching us. And then, yeah, and it was kind of just like, we're, you know, assimilation. And we lived in a small Texas town, and, you know, and when Trump was voted president, you know, and put the ban on Muslims, like, our mosque was like, it was really huge in the headlines because it was lit on fire. so it's like, and my dad had been like fired for multiple, so there were like these other things at work that are like, okay, they're at play. And for him, because sometimes I'm like, Baba, like, why did you stop, like, can't you see I would be so much better in life if I knew Arabic, and I would be able to connect with my family more. And he was like, yeah, like, but it's different then, like literally like scared, and would think that it would be a disadvantage and that we would be different and that it would not be something to add on to your resume or whatever, and yeah, it's unfortunate because there's that, like, there's always been that language barrier between me and my family, but love has no barrier at the same time, though. It's like I feel like I know them so intensely and deeply because we've all probably, you have been there, and even if you don't know the language, people take the time to communicate even if you don't know the language, no matter where you are. I think it's like,
I don't know if you've been around anybody and you tell them if they're Lebanese and you tell them you're Lebanese, it's this instant bond,
yes,
and it's not even over trauma. It's just like this inherent brotherhood, sisterhood that's just there. And it's really unspeakable on many, many levels. And it's really just powerful. But going back on the language thing and to Caramel, they kind of alternate. They say some words in French and then they go back to Arabic because they were colonized by France, obviously. And so a lot of people in Lebanon, their second language is French. So I thought that's cute.
Yeah.
I know.
Actually, I just want to that all three of us are Lebanese and we're in Austin, and like going back to the statement that there's more Lebanese people outside of Lebanon than there is, and to be even cool like that we're all in the same sort of creative circle. I don't know. It has. I'm like, what's in the water there?
Yeah. Supposedly, there's a Lebanese festival here too.
Oh, cool.
When?
I know. I mean, I only went once with my dad when he visited, but I didn't even know about it. Like, my dad came to town and was like, "There's a Lebanese festival here." I was like, "Okay." And apparently, a lot of like land in Austin is owned by some Lebanese families. So.
The owner of C3 is a Lebanese, I think I heard.
Yeah, I mean, I want to learn more Arabic because I only know shwai shwai. So I know important phrases like Atini bose, give me kiss.
So how did you feel watching that film then, like, or Caramel, because it was the subtitles? How did you feel about the subtitles? For me, I mean, there was like things that I felt like I could just cover it and I knew what they were saying. Obviously, contextually, it was there. It was helpful to have the subtitles, obviously, though.
Definitely. Yeah. Like, I think when I'm around my family, I have a lot of family from Lebanon and Dallas. And so when I'm with them, I mean, I can definitely more easily understand than I can, dictate back.
Absolutely.
And so hearing it was so comforting, just hearing the language hits a place in you, where you're like, oh man, like it is in me, like we all have, like, no matter who you are, you have this ancient wisdom within you. And like, I mean, I believe in that. And I feel like I call on my ancestors all the time. And you have this natural tongue, and you can understand the way people are talking with each other. You can understand these like little jokes and stuff, but it's like, I wish that I could, I wish that I didn't need subtitles for the whole movie.
I felt like it was an easy film to read the subtitles, though. Usually there's some foreign films that it's just a task, it's
right.
In a book, but this one, it blended, I thought, very well.
For sure. Well, we're coming up to the end of the podcast. So obviously Beirut just had a really horrifying, devastating explosion back on August 4th. There are a lot of incredible NGOs and charities, and there are also some ones that aren't so reputable. More so, it's basically, it's very important that we're giving our money to the right people and not to the Lebanese government, because they are notorious for not caring about their citizens. So I wanted to talk about Haven for Artists, which is it's an activist and artist space where they do an artist residency in Beirut, and they have a huge GoFundMe for their physical space for some of their artists. They focus on, Lebanese artists and queer artists specifically, and they're also bringing a lot of light to the kafala system, which is this really gross system that Lebanon has that is essentially legalized slavery. And there are a lot of people in Lebanon who are trying to help these migrant workers get back to their homelands, because especially after the explosion and with the current just political crisis with the money crisis, they have been kicked out onto the streets and are homeless in a country that is not their own, even though they were promised to be taken care of. So Haven for Artists is really great. If you hop on their Instagram, they have some links in their bio, and they're pretty great.
Cool. Yeah, I wanted to reiterate that the Lebanese people right now, citizens of Lebanon that live there, that are residents, cannot literally access their money from their bank accounts. So it is very, very imperative and crucial that this money is being put into the right hands here, and not being invested back into their corrupt government. So I guess I just wanted to put out a plug for Impact Lebanon. I think I just read what started off as this kind of small group of activists that kind of, so it kind of just gained good headway, I guess, after the explosion in Lebanon, and they've really accelerated in terms of disaster relief. So I think that would be a great organization to look up to. I think they have a page on Instagram and a website. So Impact Lebanon. I also wanted to tell you and Jenny about this fun little Instagram page that I follow. It's called the Habibi Collective, and they post a lot of Arabic films on there. I recently just started following this, so I think you would be really interested in maybe sifting through that to see if there's a film that you would like to eventually maybe look at and do a talk over. Thank you so much again for having me. I had a lot of fun. I was a little nervous at first because I don't do stuff like this at all, and obviously it's the pandemic and we're all so isolated, but this was really fun and I needed this, so thank you guys so much.
Yes, this is so nice. Thank you again. I did want to mention, Impact Lebanon was one that was on my list, and the Lebanese Food Bank, and of course the Lebanese Red Cross. I feel like they can't get enough help. So I don't know when this will be, I guess, public or airing, but I will be having a shirt on Raw Paws Dropship, and all the proceeds will be going to the food bank, the Lebanese food bank.
Amazing. Oh, that's great.
I'll send you the link to that once it's live. It's supposed to go live this week. And I guess, no, I guess that's it. I was looking at my list. Okay.
How can listeners find y'all?
So mine is hey Jinni J, Jinnij. Hey Jinni J. That's my thing. Hit me up there.
Mine is Nadia is a name, at Nadia is a name.
Wonderful.
Presence is quite lame, but
no, y'all are. I love both of y'all's work a lot, so check them out, audience. Okay. Well, this was a really phenomenal conversation. Thank you both so much for being here and talking about one of my favorite movies. This was special. Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you so much for everything that you're doing for the community in general, for filmmakers and for Arabs, and just kind of blending those two worlds together is super important.
Yeah, thank you. But thank you again for organizing this, you and Hyperreal, and making this happen. It's very And I hope other people enjoy it too.
Me too. But if not, whatever.
They will.
Y'all.
All right. We'll see you guys later.
Bye.